public hearing.
So we got a big agenda. We
Kevin is not coming.
Kevin's not gonna be here today, no. So we've got, executive session is gonna be at 5:15, that's when Jim could get here.
Okay.
Jim's got a meeting that he's at now, he couldn't get here for the early one, so that's why we put that to the end. So,
Or we can suspend the rules and maybe plug him in when he gets here, no matter where we are on the agenda.
I encourage that, yeah, let's do that, okay? So, what I'd like to do is, any routine stuff, let's just jam through it, because I know we got budget stuff in here, right?
Yep.
And then we've got executive sessions, which could take some time, so let's, without further ado, let's approve the minutes.
Mike's camera on? Tom?
We're on?
Yep.
Okay. Item 1, approve the minutes of the regular meeting.
We approve the minutes for September
Okay.
22nd, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just thought it should say that I recused myself from that executive session.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make a motion that we accept the minutes with that amendment
Yep.
of September 22nd, 2021.
Second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Everybody approve with the amendment? Okay, good. Passed. Financial report, Tanya.
Gallons sold are up 4% year-to-date, revenues remain strong, and overall expenses are favorable, $103,000. Year-to-date capital spent is $746,000, and year-end projection for capital is $850,000. Cash on hand at the end of September was $2 million.
Good. Any concerns?
Nope.
And that's, is that at the point where it's trending down because we're spending capital, so
Yeah, we have some bond payments due, and the big bond payments are due this month, so
it'll
we'll
kind of
see
trend
if we
down a
can
little
see
bit, then
that.
kind of go back up as
Yeah.
we do less capital work.
Yeah.
Question from the city council on Monday. Are we pacing towards the 2 miles in the year? Are we on target to have that done?
Yep.
For this year? Good. That was a specific question from Councilor Walker. I wanted to get down the answer. Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Beautiful. So we got to ratify the payment of bills.
I move to ratify the payment of bills.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, second. Any other discussion? Bob, you looked through it, I'm sure, everything looks good?
I had a couple questions, simple ones, and that was it, and they're taken care of, thank you.
Awesome, all in favor? Okay, it's passed, good. Open session. Okay, nobody's here, so we're gonna close the open session. Activity project update.
All right, activities have been good. We've been busy on main projects. Pearl, Pine, Willow, and School are going well. We're about 2/3 of the way done with that project. We still have a little bit of work to do on Pine and then on Willow, and then we'll be wrapping that up. Again, things are going well. We're going to be getting into winter hydrant maintenance here pretty soon. Yeah.
1.56 of 2 miles.
1.56 to 2 miles, and we still have a street and a half to do on Pearl, Pine, Willow, and School.
So it's going to be just a little short of 2.
It is, a little short. There's a section of 3rd Street, because that project got off to a late start, won't happen until next year. But that is part of this year's project. So that ran into a time crunch at the end of the season, so.
Mike, one thing on that list, Grace Lawn, last one, that's where the new main isn't put in and
Yep.
they repaved the whole thing. Can you just tell me briefly about the repaired water leak up there?
So on the section that didn't get replaced, there was a blow-off, which is on what used to be the dead end of the main there, and that was hit when they were doing the reconstructing work. They hit that blow-off, and then after they put the base pavement down, it started leaking, so we had to repair that.
Thank you.
It wasn't, it happened before the surface went down, so
Phew,
nobody will ever know now,
that was
except
good.
for us.
Thank you.
And you said 3rd Street it got started late?
3rd Street.
Did that have to do with the bridge that we had to replace and all that?
No, it didn't have anything to do with us. It had to do with the neighborhood meetings went longer than the city anticipated. That was their project. They wound up going back and forth for 2 months before they agreed upon the scope. So they started the project late.
Gotcha,
So-
perfect. That'll be good.
So it'll be at 1.9 miles, or what will be at?
We're gonna be right close to 2 miles. Yeah,
Okay,
That was like one block.
yeah,
that's good. Well, that's Counselor Walker's,
that's his area.
that's his
so-
area, so it's his ward's issue. All right, good. So we are, that's everything?
Yep, I'm done.
Thank you, Mike.
Got a question, Mike?
Yeah.
Hotel Road,
Yes.
is that complete and road open yet, or?
That'll be open on the 22nd.
That's what it looked
That
like
bridge-
this morning.
That bridge will be open on the 22nd.
Nice.
Our work is
Thank you. Nice.
Yeah, well, our work is. by
Come along, well, there's a bridge.
That's the bridge on Hotel Road?
Yeah,
It's a real.
there, that's a
bridge
good
this
view of the bridge.
Oh, nice.
So let's come
time.
along.
Look at all the riprap.
Oh, yeah, yeah, so. Well, then
Real-
the
real bridge
21st
this time.
The 21st is tomorrow, right? So
22nd,
22nd, so
Yeah.
the day after tomorrow.
Friday, yep.
Cool.
Be nice.
2 days in. A little bit later, earlier than what they talked about, they said the end of the month, and originally it was the 15th.
Yeah.
So it's right in between
That's
what
good,
they first
that's
said and
good.
what they revised. it.
Excellent. Anything else? Anybody else have questions for Mike? All right, good, thank you, Mike. Let's go to new business and water quality updates.
Yep, on water quality, as I've been mentioning the last few months, the water quality's been really good. But just hold on, because it always changes this time of the year, and lo and behold, it has. Our Secudis readings have gone down. As you remember, in the middle of the summer, we had clarities of a little over 12 meters. Now it's down to 4. Some readings have been at 3.5. So, as typical this time of year, the lake properties do change for a number of factors, but it follows historic trends. One interesting thing is, in years past, sometimes you get a lot of algae biomass in the lake. That's just the volume of different types. We get dozens of different types of algae that can grow in the lake. And sometimes that does affect the clarity, but given the testing we've done, the biomass is very low. There's not a lot of stuff growing in the lake by historic standards, which is good. Their turbidity has gone up, still below a 1. One key parameter we look at is the dissolved oxygen in the deep hole. Back earlier this month, that was at a 3.32. What we don't want is the lake to go anoxic where there's no lake at the bottom of the deep hole, but that number has been holding up, so that's a good thing. The lake temperature is up by historic standards. It's like 19 degrees Celsius now, but one thing working in our favor is the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting colder. It has been a relatively warm September and October. That might be contributing to some of the overall downward trends we've been seeing, but hopefully the season will level things off and take care of that. So that's kind of good on water quality. One thing I wanted to mention, one thing that came out since this report came out was now, and you've all got a copy of it, at least electronically, the Lake Auburn study has been done. It's out there for the public. The city is still waiting for some suggested ordinance revision language. That's something that they're going to get at some point, I'm not sure when. So they're just waiting for everyone to catch up, read that report, and they're looking to put out some presentations early, probably next year, after the beginning of the year. So there's gonna be some time to go through that report. If anyone would like a print copy, I can get one for you. I've got one. You've all got it electronically, but it's a 91-page document. It's kind of cumbersome to go through electronically. If anyone wants a paper copy, just let me know. We can.
Did they give you some, or are they usually printed?
All I just all I have is an electronic version.
Yeah, that's what I have too.
Yeah.
That's fine.
funny. That's our pipes.
I don't know how many paper copies the consultant gave the city, but I could certainly get some for you.
Well, I would ask if there are some available. I would not want to go through the process of photocopying that many pages, but if there are companies willing to or has copies.
Be nice to have one on the desk here, you know,
Yeah.
and anyone can look at it, come in and look
And
at
I'd be
it.
interested in a hard copy if it was something that was done by them, but I don't want us to
Yeah.
photocopy 90-something copies. I
Yeah,
can
if
use
it
an
was
electronic.
like,
Yeah, just,
if we put one of the here on the desk, we could come in and look at it at our free time.
Yeah, so maybe you can ask.
Okay.
If they have something that they're willing to give up.
Yeah.
But again, I'd rather read an electronic copy than a photocopy and all the time involved in photocopy.
Okay, so
Just as easy to print out with a copier. You can shoot it at the copier and have it printed in 3 minutes.
I'll have one here if you want one.
Yeah.
To come in and view, no problem. That's it for that.
Okay. All right, that brings us to the budget, first draft of the budget.
Yep, so included in your packet is the first draft of our 2022 budget. I can slice this or dice this any way you want. If you'd like, I could just go down through the first page and highlight some of the thought processes we had for these line items, and if there are any questions or
Yeah, just,
Can I ask one question to start?
Sure.
Does this anticipate a rate increase?
No, it does not.
This is trying to keep everything without an increase.
Correct. Yeah.
anybody else have any thoughts before Sid gets into it? Jason?
Because of the bonds, or what's the reason for no increase?
Well, if you look at it, our total expenses have gone down this year compared to our,
Is this the third year? Am I wrong?
what's that?
Are we on the third year of 1, 2, 3, 17% type thing? Rate hike?
I think we're the second full year.
Second
Last
full
year
year.
was the first full year. Since the
from-
last rate increase.
Yep.
It was March of 2020, right?
Right, yep.
Could we say though that the reason why we're not gonna have a rate increase is because we're always wanted to be above $1 million, and we're above $2 million right now? And we'll probably carry that through, maybe $1.5 million next year, maybe 1.25. This time next year, we might be thinking about it, but.
Or maybe we could do 2.5 miles.
I mean, it all depends on what our priorities
I'm
are.
in favor of looking at that, you know.
At our current rate, when we put that rate in place, it was to put in 2 miles in perpetuity. We're not gonna, at that given pace, we're not going to need a rate increase for a while, until our cash on hand gets down to a critical level of 600,000. If you look at the,
It's number
Trends,
600K, I remember now.
yeah.
It just as we look at this, and we look at break even or 2 miles, it's our discretion to say, gee, let's budget for 2.5 miles and have revise this. So I just want to get the starting point of where this was at.
Well, wait till we get to the capital, we saw what it's gonna cost to do 2 miles. It's quite a huge increase. And that's internally,
what you said.
but let's look at it.
You just want me to go kind of down through these and from the ideas
Jason,
and numbers?
you had said you had some requests, not about the specifics, but over in general that you had.
Yeah, so did we take into account bonding?
No.
And did we talk about, so I think the other question was,
Hang on, I'll tell you what it was. So,
so cost sharing as
Jason,
an
outline
alternative.
Right, and you, okay.
one thing we considered, Jason, I just was.
That's fine.
With Tanya, if we borrow money next year,
Yeah.
the first payment isn't gonna be for the following year anyway.
So is that this coming budget or not?
Yeah, we're talking about 2021, or 2022. If we were to bond in January or February of 2022, our first payment wouldn't be due till
Principal payment would be.
principal payment and interest, right?
It wouldn't hit next year. It wouldn't hit next year's
If we hit
budget.
the
Interest would be, but it's
spring.
1% of $1 million, so.
If we hit the spring, we'd have an interest payment.
So it may not be a factor in next year's budget for bonding.
What I've done is, if you remember from the last meeting we had, I did submit to the SRF program because they had $8 million from stimulus money added to the SRF allocation. So there's $34 million that they have to allocate towards the state revolving loan fund. $8 million of that will be used for principal forgiveness. So I did apply, as was directed last month, to put in, I put a $2.5 million request into the SRF for 3 miles of pipe replacement, plus $2.5 million for a shovel-ready set of plants for a filter plant. That was the directive that was given. So that was submitted to the SRF the week before October 1st. That is a competitive process, so that's not going to be, they're gonna review the applications. By December 1st, they're going to announce the projects that have been favorably scored. That money, then, well, those projects will then be submitted to the EPA, the federal program, and then they won't be available for expenditure until next July. So a lot of things could or could not happen. Whether we're gonna qualify for it, the amount of principal forgiveness we're going to get, because that's not a given yet.
But they tell you that up front before you sign.
Yeah, exactly. So once that comes down the road, then we'll know if that's something we want to do or not. So that's where that process is.
And then there was also a motion to request a straight bonding and do a bond outside, not just in that program, but if we could get one for 1% through whatever agency, whatever vehicle that we were talking about.
And that's not in this.
No, I have not submitted a separate bond request outside of the SRF.
Right.
We missed the deadline on that for the fall.
That was in August.
That was August 1,
For a bond for,
the fall.
General resolution.
General resolution. So we could hit the spring, which is
Okay.
February.
so February is the deadline for, and that's the bond that you had evaluated would cost us 1%. So,
Steve,
so
just,
February.
yeah,
is the-
February, something to add, if we do get, the state funding, or if we can get into this, this other bond, the indebtedness now that we have on two bonds is averaging 4.25%. That's about $70,000 a year in interest. If we paid off at 1%, we'd save probably $55,000 a year on those two bonds. Now, can we prepay these bonds down?
Some you can, some you can't, I'd have to read.
So we need to find out, just the two that are 4.5%, all the other ones they're under 1.5. So we're carrying two bonds at 4.5% and 4.08%, and those are our biggest chunks of interest. 70 grand a year right now. We can knock those down and save 55 grand a year with
Okay.
a 1%er.
So
So either way, we should be.
So it's
jumping
fair
on
to
it.
say then, if we should know by December whether or not these funds, these bonds that you, the principal
Revolving.
revolving,
Mhm.
we should know whether we're in line for that, and then February, what's the date? Can
They
you?
don't have the spring schedule out. Yeah.
Okay, so
Typically in February,
that for that would be at that point, okay. But we can apply for that before the February, correct? Is it
That's
closed?
the
Like-
deadline. February's the deadline, right?
So we could apply for the spring one. So I'm trying to get an understanding of how does that work?
I have to think about the schedule for this year. They have, the following month, after the applications are due, they have an application approval in March. And they have a closing in May.
Okay. All right, good.
Deadline's February, March, the approval, closing in May.
So the very least we could do, if we didn't want to use it for infrastructure, is pay off two much more expensive bonds.
Oh my God.
So that makes logistic sense all the way around, no matter what, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so.
That's about 2.1 million to pay those off to save about 55 grand a year.
Would there be any penalty?
Well, that's what.
Financial
We'll
penalty
find out
for
on those
paying
two.
it off early?
She's gonna
So
find-
what we're gonna do is, Tanya, you're gonna give us I'd request that if you could give us an evaluation of the bonds, like, what can we pay off early with no penalties? That sort of thing, and, if there's one that's 7 years left at 50 grand a year, that's a chunk of money.
And if there is a penalty, how much
Right.
is the
yes.
penalty?
So you can give us sort of an evaluation of those bonds?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. That's great, appreciate that.
You can
So-
email that stuff to us too, we don't have to wait till next meeting. It's good to know.
So Sid, I guess that would, why don't you give us sort of your overview of the budget as an evaluation, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. On
Thank
the first page, just the way this is set up, we've got the revenues, expenditures, then we show the bond payments, surplus from operations, how much we're planning on spending for equipment. Capital is not included in this budget, but the total budget that we're looking to be approving here will be the total expenses, bond payments, and general equipment. If you look at the top, we normally, for revenues, assume a 0% increase in growth and usage. That gives us a conservative number moving forward. We certainly hope there's going to be growth and more revenue, but for budgeting purposes, we assume a flat number. So those first 5 numbers assume getting next year what we're projecting at the end of this year. When you move down to the other revenues that we have, some of those are based upon what we're currently getting now. Some things are based on 3-year averages because things will go up and down. So that kind of covers our revenues. You can see we've got a, and I probably should say right up front, one of the unfortunate things in the timing of our budget that we put together is just about the time we publish something, it invariably happens the very next day we'll get some updated numbers. And I don't want to confuse you or confuse the process. So I do have a few updated numbers and some things I'm going to be giving you in reporting, but I'm not going to give you new sheets to plug in because it could get really confusing. I will say that next month we will give you a new revised budget, which will be much more honed in and much more updated. Yeah, so we're looking at the total revenues. Going down to expenditures, the first thing that you see is our payroll, and you will see that includes this year a 5.9% COLA, cost of living allowance. This is something that I brought up yesterday as well with the sewer trustees. This has been, as you all know, an extraordinary year. We've been extremely fortunate here at the district that the COVID bug has not really impacted us. It hasn't hit us. We're even more fortunate that we've been able to maintain and keep all the employees we have. I've done a survey around, and a lot of other water districts and a lot of other businesses in general have really suffered with this pandemic. A lot of people have vacancies. A lot of people are quitting their job, looking for something else. We have not had that issue, but it's always looming in the background. I'm very, very strongly endorsing that we do adopt a 5.9% COLA this year. And checking around, that's actually not out of line with a lot of other industries that rely on the kind of things we do, construction. A lot of the guys that work for us are basically construction workers. And it's very enticing. There's a lot of openings, a lot of things out there that they could be doing, but they've chosen to stay here. So I strongly endorse that 5.9% COLA.
And that's based upon Social Security.
Right, yep.
That number is tied, that's what the Social Security COLA was this year.
Correct.
That's where that number comes from, for those who weren't in the meeting yesterday.
And we don't know
I
what the
can't remember if
actual
you were still there or
official number is? Is that
5.9,
Social Security? Is that
right.
also the CPI?
CPI, that's the, yes, that
That's
is.
actually the number.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna, I don't know if we need to dwell on it right here, because we're gonna be talking about this in the next couple of months. But it's the philosophy, and I have an issue with automatically, especially at 6% raise. Next year could be as much. We get inflation's going crazy, so next year if we follow that as a rule, a guide, COLA, whatever it is, we pass it on. could put us in a lot of trouble if we get into inflationary times.
Because it's not really a quote-unquote raise, because they're not getting a wage raise. It's a 1 year deal.
Well-
Next year it could be 1.5 or 1.8 or
Right.
2.
Right,
And
but
it
it's
could
all
go-
relative,
it could go again,
that's a
so it's-
variable thing,
It's just one, just
Right.
1 year, a 1 year thing,
it's a variable thing.
a variable 1 year.
When I'm talking about the cost of living is variable, yes, we've been talking about inflation, and you've been to the grocery store the past 5 years, a lot of things have been going up, even though they say it's 1%. You tell me, when you go buy something at the grocery store the last
It's
3 years, it's
1%
been
now.
going up 1% a year.
It's 8%.
It hasn't
Steve,
been.
Yeah.
can the treasurer's concern be communicated amongst the employees that, hey, looks like we're gonna do this 5.9 this year, but, just basically what you're saying, but hey, next year it might not be that much, just heads up now, in case we have
Well,
to
but
make that decision.
listen,
Hold on, let's,
No, just
I
a
do that-
communication amongst the employees,
I do that every year. After our budget passes, I sit down and I have the crew come, they crowd in this room and I give them the budget presentation and I lay everything out for them. So yeah, I can certainly do that.
Casey, you had something?
Well, that's what I said, that's Sid's job,
Yeah.
to communicate to the
Right.
employees.
And they know that. I mean, they've been through this too.
So, not to cut you short, Andy, but your point is made, and I don't think this isn't a debate at this point, this
No,
is
I
just
mean,
an
what we talked about,
overview.
but my
Yeah.
view is that there's a lot more to a pay increase than just because COLA says it's this year 6.9, 5.9, next year it's 8.3, we automatically 8.3 because COLA says it's 8.3.
Right.
And it's got to happen the next 3 years, we got inflation, folks, it's coming. And are we willing to pay that much automatically by policy? That's what I'm talking about.
Just to be clear, this is not a policy, this is
It
a,
has been, when you look at the
hold
past,
on,
we've
there's a
always-
difference between policy and process, right? It's not a
Practice.
practice,
Right.
practice.
It's a
not-
practice and not a policy.
Practice and not a policy,
Right.
okay, right, all right, just to make sure,
Like in 2011, COLA was 0,
But we still went with a.
but we went with 0.
You've been here a while, Bob.
Pardon?
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I did want to talk about real quick was on the capital.
well, let's Sid finish his thing, and then we'll go around the room, once Sid's done with his report, then we'll go around the room and everyone can kind of bring out the things that they've seen and questions. Okay?
Yep, so just going down through this list, the very next thing, employee benefits, in the copy you have, and at the time we published this, we were assuming there was a 5% increase in health insurance, because that's the number we were given, because we didn't have the policy renewal yet. Pretty much 10 minutes after we printed this and mailed it out, I got a call from Cross, who does our insurance. As you know, we are in a self-insured pool. There are 30 clients they have that are in this same self-insured bracket. 2 out of the 30 clients that they have actually got a flat or 0% health increase, and we were one of them. When she called, she said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Should I be?" She said, "I think you should." So we're getting a 0% flat health insurance premium this year. So
That's 20K less.
That's huge.
it's actually, it is huge, it's very huge. So, and to help that along as well, we, part of this program, the way it's set up, if we are trending in a positive territory, spending less than our premium, we accumulate cash, and right now, we are $83,000 in the black with our health insurance program. With the 2 months remaining, there's a potential to accumulate 40,000 more. But you never know how health insurance is trending. We have 2.5 months left. But if we continue to trend that way, we're going to get half of that money back and allocate it back into this line item. So that's all good news there. That will be reflected in the next iteration of this budget we put out. But I just wanted to point that out because that is a huge benefit. The other items going down through, there are backup schedules for them, and most of them are based upon 3-year averages or carrying forward items. There's a separate budget in there for the Watershed Protection Commission, that one's highlighted as well. One driver, and again, just going back down through the list, one of the items in here that we've got quite a robust budget for is general equipment. We have reviewed that again. One thing that's been a little frustrating to nail down is vehicle expenses, because number one, there's no guarantee that vehicles are even going to be available for us, even if we budget them. So that's kind of a frustrating thing. But we have internally whittled that general equipment down quite a bit to a little over half of what we've got in here for our allocation of $179,000. We've got that down to about 111. We looked at the option of leasing. We had it in there to purchase a wheeler truck. We're looking at possibly leasing that, which would, and split between sewer, that would cut that expense down quite a bit.
Would that be a lease to purchase? or-
Yes, yeah, kind of what we're doing with the excavator, lease to
Okay.
purchase, correct. Right, lease to purchase. Also looking at replacing one of the one-ton trucks, which is currently not in that list, but we wanted to include that in there.
Those are very versatile trucks.
Yeah, that's the one that, it's got a dump body, it also serves as our plow truck, so that's a workhorse truck. We've got it in there to replace our small dump truck, but I don't think we need to do that. That truck is, it's one of those vehicles that's so old that it almost doesn't make sense to replace it at this point, because it's not costing us much to use. We don't use it a whole lot, so replacing it in the final analysis didn't make a lot of sense for us. So that's another thing we cut out that really put that equipment number down to a more reasonable number. So I don't know if there's any other questions that people have been through this and have any specific, we're more than happy to answer.
Waterworks.
Yeah, no capitals in those spaces.
Roads.
Thank you.
But just a number I'll throw out there, about 70 grand if we can get any kind of cost apportionment. And I'm kind of wondering how the discussions may have gone with Lewiston. 2 trustees were supposed to go to Lewiston.
Yeah, do we have that on the?
Well, yeah,
On the agenda.
we do, well, it's not specifically, but I thought we could bring that up under old business 10-person complaint, because that kind of ties into how the
Okay.
discussion went.
Okay, let's do that.
So based on that, I'm just kind of curious if we need to massage the legal budget, that's all. Just a place marker for legal, depending on that discussion.
Yeah, that's good. Where's the, what do we got for legal here? I'm just looking through.
30 grand, I think we've only spent this past year, it was, let's see,
What page is that?
25?
Page 3.
I'm thinking
Oh, yeah, legal and audit.
Oh, page
Okay.
3, yeah, page 3 on the,
First line under subtotal EE benefits.
yeah, legal and audit.
It's at 30, we're at 25 for the year so far. And so, I think that probably makes sense to bump that as a placeholder.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about how things went,
Yeah,
and I'm hoping that we won't have to use that much, but there'll be some money we're gonna have to use, for sure. One way or the other, we're gonna have to use some, whether it be to help rewrite contracts or some other stuff, whether we go the RFP route or not. There's still gonna be some additional, and I'm not sure if that was
and we're
figured.
gonna have counsel here later. Is it worth asking him if there's a ballpark plus minus, a swag?
You know, I think there's no way of telling.
Right.
And when we talked about the meeting.
Did you have a number in mind?
No, it's peanuts compared to what we can be saving if we get the right legal advice to help us.
Well, we know we got that rather monster number to do all the research first.
What
So,
number was that?
$40,000 to $50,000 for them
Yeah,
to
so-
go through all the contracts and come up with a game plan. So that would be the next step if we were gonna go that route. And, because we're not gonna just ask for legal counsel until after that's done, then that counsel will be able to tell us what's what.
Right.
We do not have a specific line item in here for that study. I don't know if that's something you want in here or not.
Is it
It's
something?
not in here now.
Yes, maybe we could take that out of surplus if it comes up, instead of budgeting for it, but we can talk about it, we got
Yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah.
This is the
Okay.
first
That's
discussion.
all, just to Placeholder.
Let's give it to the next meeting and see what happens. We may add it in before this budget's over.
All right, good.
We'll know a lot more.
I got a question.
Yeah,
Sid, can you comment about capital projects? You know, this, 1.4 million. What does it include, what does it not include, what is it, how did you price it out to be so expensive?
It's on the last page.
Is that the last page, Steve?
Yeah, let's take that.
Yeah, yes, it's the same, yeah, both,
Again, this will encompass the 2 miles that we've got. As you can see, it's quite a list, a lot of little, there's not one big project that swallows it up, there's a whole bunch of roads in there.
With this current year, they're projecting 850, and we're doing close to 2 miles. Here you're 1.4 million for 2 miles. Paint the picture for me.
Well, we looked at, in the current budget, we had a lot of roads that we did in-house or were able to save because we did pipe bursting or other things. This one is, was it coming to 130 bucks
About
a foot?
$130 a foot is what you run for an average of what we're spending this year. That's what the number we carried forward in here is what it's costing us. And between the cost of materials going up, the cost of contracting services going up, the cost of everything going up, this is where we're at.
This past year, we did 850,000.
Right, yeah, and it just, we got a really good favorable number on one job, but not so much on the other job.
Okay.
Third Street was way over $130 a foot. You know, Grace Lawn, we paid $30 a foot for them to put the pipe in. You know, that was really cheap.
Okay.
The work that we're doing, some of our projects have come out high, the asphalt prices have gone up, pipe costs are up. I think $130 a foot is a safe number to realistically budget to do work. You know, if I tell you it's $80 a foot, we're only gonna be asking for more money.
Just looking for the.
it's 1.35, right, because it's
Right.
about 10.4,
Right.
10,000 foot, it's 5,200 feet per mile, something like that.
5,280, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Okay, no,
that's it, yeah.
That's what one of the, you know.
No, it's a good
number comes
question.
out that we also recognize.
I noticed that too, so I'm glad you asked why. So that's just cost of doing business?
It's just the
that's
cost
what
of doing business. And this is a mix, this is not just us doing work, this is, you know, we took right from the city's list of their construction projects, all these little runs are gonna be the first project that they're gonna be subbing out. We're gonna have to watch that next year. When they put this out to bid, we can't necessarily do what we did on Third Street and just kinda eat that higher price. We need to, you know, that number didn't come out so good for us, but, you know.
We're just estimating, obviously, when it comes down to doing it, we might be able to get a better price. That's what happened in Poland.
We might.
On their sewer line, they found out when they went out for an RFP that, boom, they got a lot better price all of a sudden.
That Third Street, like we were talking earlier, that project got delayed. It didn't go out to bid until the end of May into June. At that point, contractors were all busy.
So they raised the price, right.
The price was high. We didn't get a good favorable price. If these projects are all designed, shovel-ready, go out to bid in February and March, might get a great price.
Right.
Might get a Grace Lawn price, you know? I don't know. Seriously, that's the way it rolls, so.
I think that's just a supply-demand thing, and let's hope that
Yeah.
next year we'll see some relief.
But like you said, I think the big concern is the inflation's real.
That's for sure. Inflation is
The
real.
inflation is real, so.
And it usually doesn't hang around for just 1 year. Usually takes a while to get that chip down.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to note too, I did at yesterday's meeting, when we're looking at these percentage increases, we're looking at projected 2021 compared to budget for 2022. In many cases, we're at or below the 2021 actual budget expenses and stuff. So, you know, even though we're showing a slight increase over what's projected, we're actually below what we budgeted for last year. So that's always good news. Whenever you're budgeting less than you budgeted the year before, that's always a good news.
So, they're basically taking the list of what the city of Auburn is planning on doing for projects, and narrowing that, none of projects that you might pick out otherwise.
These were all on our list.
Okay.
So there's some projects they're doing that are on our list, so they're not
a
on
lot
our
of,
list.
a lot of them are the ones.
All of
you would-
these are on our list. We would be doing these anyways.
Okay.
It's all old cast iron stuff.
So why is this one down so much?
What's that one?
Transmission.
What is it, Jason?
Transmission and distribution, 206, so it's 1581.
Three-year
It's our
average
biggest
number.
reduction other
A
than.
lot of times
That's
that's
a
a
three-year average.
goes three-year average and
Right.
puts
Yeah,
that in
it's one of
because
those
you're
that's every
guessing.
year. Yeah, because we
Gotcha.
never know exactly how much, I mean, we hope we don't have to spend a lot on main breaks, but all we can do is go by a average and do the best guess at that kind of line item.
So we were over.
2019 was a little high, and 2021 was a little high compared to, well, the actual, 2021 was 2020 was low, but it skewed that. That's the only problem with it.
Yeah,
Your average.
yeah, of
You have
course.
Something like COVID or whatever that caused all the numbers to skew in 2020. But we're using it to average in for a
Yeah.
three-year average. And so it's as good a guess as any, I think.
Okay.
based on- It could be,
So-
we could go over on that.
Do we think that 2020 was down and it was not,
We had a whole lot less main breaks in 2020 than we did in 2019, I can tell you that.
Really?
Yeah, 2019 was a rough
Staying
year.
home and using, their facilities. more
No,
than
we just
ever
had a lot of
before.
main breaks in 2019. That was a rough year. We had that big one on Turner Street by IHOP that was very expensive.
That was huge.
That one break alone was $50,000-$60,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that whole cul-de-sac.
That whole road, we had to
right, yeah.
reconstruct
You
that.
rebuilt
So
the
we're-
road for IHOP.
we're maybe
Yeah.
underestimating
Because
there?
it blew out
Is that,
the whole.
Maybe
whole
under,
road.
maybe
You
over.
had to rebuild
It's
it
an
all.
average.
Wow.
That was expensive, big expense.
Okay.
oh,
Jason?
because 19 was higher than it,
Right,
yeah.
right.
That was an extraordinary year.
It wasn't
If you could
because of
see
the
back
issue
to
of like that
2010,
area,
you'd see
it's
we're
not
carrying a
someplace
three-year
else.
average.
Yep. Yeah, it's the best we can do. Okay.
All right.
I don't want to get caught off guard because that's our biggest, other than interest, that's our biggest savings.
All right, anybody else?
So we'll be reviewing this budget every meeting from now until the end of the, right?
When's the approval? When do we approve it?
We
We have a special meeting for that?
December,
December.
yeah,
We bumped that up a week.
Like the 15th?
The 15th, yeah, I think you're right, we bumped that up.
Because that's Christmas week, it's that Christmas, the 22nd.
Right, we didn't want to put it into
Yeah, right,
Christmas
yeah.
week.
Okay. So we approve, so if, we'll determine on the 17th, you're gonna give us the updated budget as we discussed. And then at that point, we'll determine if we need to have a workshop, right?
Yep.
And if we need to workshop it some more, then we will, and then we approve the budget on the 15th.
Yep, there's a public hearing.
Public hearing, joint meeting.
Is that gonna be over at City Hall?
Usually right here.
The public hearing is right
Yeah,
here?
nobody ever shows up.
Oh, okay.
It's a 5-minute meeting.
Oh, good.
Convene water, convene sewer.
On the 17th?
Yeah.
I mean, on the 15th?
15th, right.
No, any comments?
Yeah, we review the joint purchases and then public hearing and then approval.
Oh, we gotta start over.
No, I just want to make sure the door was unlocked.
Oh, the door was unlocked. I thought you said, is it still on? No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes, it is unlocked. I did check the door, yeah.
Oh, I thought you would call it.
I thought you was doing this, yeah. So now see the light.
All right,
So next month, then, the COLA, let's see, so we had, the health will be updated, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that'll be the big thing, you'll see equipment will be a lot different. That just-
I'd ask if people have questions on if you have a proposal on the COLA and on what to do about that, then I think that's something we should have concrete for next meeting and have a debate on or have a discussion on. I mean,
Yeah.
so we know if that, we're gonna have to roll up our sleeves to dig into something with an alternate before the budget formal meeting. Right? I mean, I think that's.
Yeah, I mean, it's all philosophy, and obviously everybody will think about it. and
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't change a person's mind when they've made their mind up about philosophy, but,
Right.
numbers aren't the real issue. It's not that we can't afford 6%. Look at the budget, we're already under budget from the previous time, and with the COLA in there, so it's not about whether we can afford it or not.
Right, so I think what we wanna do next meeting is, that's a big, it's a point, then let's have an open, respectful debate about it, and then a vote. And let's decide and
And we always
finish it
usually have
then.
to vote on that.
Yeah,
So we don't go into the last meeting in December and
With a,
argue.
right, that's my point, is that whatever we decide, so. I kinda already know where I'm sitting on that, so. But
Very
I'm
good.
open to, what's that?
Very good.
Did we want to increase that legal line, or are we gonna leave it as is?
I'd like to wait till the next
Okay.
meeting, only because, you know, this is an ongoing thing, and we'll talk about it in the next item.
Okay, so we got, that's good. Everybody good on the budget then for now? Thank you, Sid.
Sure.
10-person complaint, old business, 10-person complaint, status.
Yes. Well,
And water apportionment, let's call it slash apportionment,
Yeah.
cost apportionment.
so I guess this, as I mentioned before, this item is kind of a dual item, status of the 10-person complaint, but that's kind of where the conversation went last Thursday, October 14th. We had our initial meeting with the city of Lewiston to go over cost apportionment. There was myself, there was Andy, Kevin and Ralph. For Lewiston, there was Heather Hunter, who is the city administrator, Marianne Brenchick, who is the public services director, and Lee Clement, who is a Lewiston city councilor. So I guess I would couch the meeting as a cordial meeting. We had introductions, we talked about our operations. I guess to cut to the chase, I don't know if you want to do it, Andy or me, but some of the things that came out of that meeting was we did agree to continue to meet, I guess, number one. It was,
Yeah.
we both got our points out.
I think so. I mean, my feeling is that they are still pretty strong on their belief. It's a philosophical belief that anything that has to do with fixed expenses, that is the lake itself, should be apportioned half, 50%. Anything that's a variable expense, that is the water itself and after it's left the lake, should be apportioned. But we did, and the city council was pretty staunch on what he wanted to do as well. He felt the same way. But as we got talking, I think we finally got them to see a little bit of what we were saying. I was a little bit disturbed that the city council said, well, geez, you know, all you had to do was ask, we would have met with you long before now. I couldn't believe that I heard him say that. When we had evidence that both, you know, the city manager and the council both said, no, we like it the way things are. It wasn't until the complaint came up that they actually decided to meet with us. But that being said, they were pretty much hard-nosed on that, but we were pretty hard-nosed too. We're not budging on what we want to do, and we made it known that we had this RFP ready to go. We had the attorney, and we told them who it was. We were ready to take the lead if we needed to, so I think they understand what we're willing to do. Then they also said, well, what we'd like to do is have more information. That is detailed information of what the line items are and what they represent. So we presented what we had, but of course Heather, being a financial person that she is, and now that she's a city manager, Heather Hunter was the Jill Eastman of Lewiston, she's now the city manager, but she wants to see an audited version of all these accounts and what they represent before, and then council can look at it and have something with real numbers, instead of us just anecdotally throwing something at them. We actually gave them the chart of accounts that they represent, but they still wanted to see a third party. So then I did come right out and ask, I said, well, how would you guys be willing to pay for part of this? Which got, you know, a little bit of chuckles, but it also got, I think that they're, you know, looking at maybe participating. Because we have the same auditor, Ron Smith, right?
H.I.H. Smith, yeah.
So they both have unique, the unique thing is they know all about our accounting system, so it should be easy to pull out the accounts that are involved in this and then be able to give Lewiston what they want, which is the detailed account of what these are and what they represent for money.
Did they take well when you said we're gonna apportion the audit cost too?
Well, at first she kind of was surprised and laughed, but then after that, I think that at the end she was just saying, Andy, open-mindedness was the thought process, because they wanted me, obviously, to have an open mind, but of course I always reciprocated with, yes, I understand open-mindedness should be at this table, and we had a chuckle about it. But
They're a two-way street.
it's a two-way street. So, the bottom line is that they want this information, and then present it to council with the detailed information. They
Prior
didn't-
to-
They didn't prior to,
Well, no, I was just gonna say that, but prior to them actually contacting the auditor, they did want to know the status of the 10-person complaint that.
oh, that's the other thing is they asked for was, and they were going
Prior to doing,
Right.
to spending any money on an audit service.
So that was another part of the debate as well, and they were going to do that. They were gonna inquire, not wait for the answer, but as to when they were gonna have the complaint answered, but when that could happen. Have the PUC tell us when they expect to, and I know you haven't heard from
Right,
them since.
actually, 10 minutes before this meeting, I got an email from Mary Ann Brenchek.
Okay.
Because she said she would contact them, I gave them a contact
Right,
number.
yep,
She sent me a note, hi Sid, I had a chance to talk to Dave Braley from the PUC today. He explained that their attorneys are drafting an examiner's report now, and it will be posted on the docket site soon. He could not give an exact date. The examiner's report will give all parties involved the opportunity to see what the commission is thinking and what their staff's recommendations to the PUC will likely include. All parties will have an opportunity to respond before formal comments get filed as a final response. He left me his cell phone number for us to call anytime. I've got a cell phone number here, so can you please share this with the trustees who were at the meeting with us as well, Mary Ann. So it sounds like they're,
something is imminent.
yeah, well, it sounds like the attorneys are
An evaluation is.
drafting an examiner's report, they're gonna post it, and there'll be a comment period before they come back with some type of final determination. So I mean, it's progress, but I don't know what this means, if it's gonna be tomorrow, if it's gonna be next year, I don't know.
And the other thing we were waiting for was Heather gonna check with Ron or you?
She was gonna, it was my understanding, she was gonna check
Get an idea,
after
right.
this came down the pike,
Okay.
because they didn't want to do anything
Right.
until they knew what was
So then
gonna
we
be
get a
expected.
ballpark from Ron, what he thinks it might cost, to dig into the books and grab these accounts and give Lewiston City Council what they're looking for. And then from there, I really think that, we laughed about a 50-50 cost sharing in this. I don't know what, but this board needs to maybe be okay with the idea that we would have to help pay for this audit, to give them the information they want. Now, we already have our information, so it should be quick for them to, look at it and say this is right, so it shouldn't be that much money on our side, because we've already dug in. It's just a matter of confirming what you've done for us, right, the different accounts that are involved in that apportionment. It's just maybe Lewiston, they have to go in and, of course, it's a bigger, I mean, I went in with the idea that I knew how many customers they had, how much money they were bringing in. I mean, they have 9,200 retail customers to our 6,900. We're a little 2.6 million thereabouts in income, and they're 4.9 million in income, and there's all kinds of things that we use to help reinforce our case that, this should be a portion, but they were still staunch on the idea that, well, this is the inventory and everybody's got an equal share in keeping it clean. But then our argument to that was, yeah, but whatever it costs to bring the water to the spigot is what we're looking at, and it should be apportioned in Lewiston. And I said the reason for the 10-person complaint was Auburn residents felt they were subsidizing Lewiston ratepayers. Now, it may not be a lot of money, it's only $70,000 a year, I said, but they are in effect subsidizing Lewiston ratepayers. It doesn't matter.
14%.
By that, it doesn't matter if you've got the body of water that we're equal, but also Hebron, Buckfield, Turner, and Babcock have an equal share in keeping the water clean. Do they get billed anything? No. So don't tell me about shares. It's not about that. It's about what does it cost to bring clean water to the tap.
Mm-hmm.
And if it costs so much money to maintain the inventory of water, then whoever's drawing the most should pay the most. And that was clear. Kevin brought up a good case about that. He talked about the pizza. Everybody brings slice of it. If you pay half to eat 3/4 of it and still think it's fair that you
Wow,
keep eating
good
3/4 of
analogy.
the pie,
Pizza's
but
good.
you keep paying half, but somebody else always eats 3/4 of it.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter how the pie arrives, it's there, it's our consumable. We used half or 3/4 rather, and whatever, they used 3/4.
Yeah, right.
Did the
So-
sewer portion come up at all? Or?
Well, Sid did bring that up, and it is clear that it's a little bit different, completely different situation, only because And he also did a good job of describing, the potential of having a separate organization like LACA that would do water. So as long, if you had an organization like that could apportion it based on use, it's something that could work, but we'd have to switch over to something like that, and of course, everybody agreed that would be quite a undertaking that really is not what you'd want to head towards.
If you were starting from scratch, it would make sense to have a water
Right.
treatment authority.
Right.
What
And
did what did they say about the agreements that we had all, did they mention anything? Did you mention anything about the agreements that all state that we should have had another agreement finalized?
Yes, but they didn't budge on that one necessarily, but I think that's, I said that at the very minimum, it says in here that we need to do this, but they said, was there a time to that? He says, no. Well then, from there.
And some of them
view,
said within 2 years.
Maybe not the 99 memo.
No, not the 99.
There's some of them that may have said within 2 years, but those, a lot of those really are not relevant anymore. The UV, building of the UV plant, which that was kind of replaced by something else, we don't know. But these are so interactive with each other that it probably was replaced with another agreement somewhere. Which, again, wanting to consolidate these down was another answer. But,
Okay.
But I think that overall, I mean, I wish that they had just caved, but I guess I expected they weren't gonna just cave. The next step is this audit thing, and as long as everybody's in agreement to help out with what it costs for the audit, within reason, of course. That's the next step, and then it's gotta go back, we gotta see the answer to the 10-person complaint, and we gotta see what Lewis and the city council has to say. I think we're gonna meet again, though, aren't we, Sid? I mean,
Well, it was my understanding I've had some emails back and forth. I don't think we're going to make any decisions until we do get that PUC report, because that's gonna set the direction for.
well, now that we have it.
You know, if you're looking at both sides of that report, if they say there's nothing to see here, that would be one, that's gonna affect one of us one way, or if they say, no, you must reapportion everything, that's gonna drive the conversation.
That's right. Now, and Sid made an interesting point, too, that at first we thought maybe we should just not worry about what the answer is, because it could be working in our favor or against us. Because they could say everything's fine now, and then when it comes to our negotiations, we've lost all of our leverage with Lewiston in negotiating cost apportionment. If the PUC comes out with an answer that says, no, it looks good to me, guys, there's nothing we can say to change. So we gotta really hope that if they have recommendations to make changes.
Yeah.
Because if they recommend nothing, just keep it the same, everything's fine, then we're really dead in the water probably, unless they feel like they want to.
A point I made that I don't think gained a lot of traction, but I'll say what I said. I thought that it might help to actually preempt to the Public Utilities Commission that we are meeting together and we're talking about this issue, because when we went into this, that's what we asked for, and we're getting that. They're at the table, they're talking to us, and depending upon, if the PUC knew that we are talking to each other, we're in the process of negotiation, if that would suffice for them to know that that's happening, and maybe they would not feel so obliged to come back with a strong opinion either way. I'm assuming that that's sort of what they would like to see too. They would probably rather have us work out our issues than have them have to strong-handedly put down either in our favor or not in our favor. Someone's gonna lose when the PUC comes back with some type of recommendation, unless their recommendation is you folks should meet and talk it over.
Yeah. Well,
But anything other than that is gonna not benefit one or the other of us.
sounds to me like though we're fairly close to them coming out with a.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, that
Okay.
sounds encouraging. So anyway, that's what happened at the meeting. and
Good, thank you.
I hope that we're gonna have another meeting, because I really do think that I wanna clear the air completely with what city council was, when that town council had said, well, geez, all we had to do was ask, we would've met with you guys.
Steve, I think until we hear from the PUC, we should probably keep these discussions to just discussions and not negotiation tactics,
Sure.
because of the video and
Yeah,
stuff.
I agree with that. Okay, good. Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen. So that moves us, if that's all, that's gonna move us to the review of the bylaws.
Yeah, we had a meeting on the 13th. Erica Kidd was with Jason and I, couldn't make it. We're getting down through our little agenda. We identified our stakeholders. We got about half the content into substantive or technical revision. We got another set of minutes that we're going to draft up, and we have our next meeting on the 28th, October, 6 p.m. at City Hall. We're in the, I think it's that community bump out room.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not, we'll have a note there. And we encourage any trustee that wants to look at the bylaws for the protection of Lake Auburn. Basically, there's really nothing going on right now, other than we're just kind of categorizing substantive or technical. And there's some things that are in there are just corrections, which I hope the board will look and make an amendment to. And then longer term, some of the gotchas, like for instance, could we have a limited bodily contact, which would allow an angler to pick up a fish, or a kayaker to touch the water getting in the kayak, something that LawPEC could interpret as still using science, something that would boast recreation without creating a pollution concern. So these are the types of things that would be substantive, because there's going to be pros and cons, and engineers wanting to do one thing or another. But other than that, Jason, have anything to add?
Nope, the zones are next.
Yep, so we're going to go into the protection zones, and there's going to be a lot of substantive issues where, hey, should we create this zone to include Minot, Hebron, and Buckfield, and try to talk to that planning board. One of the things I wanted to mention is the City of Auburn ordinance was adopted verbatim by the Auburn Water District's ordinance recommendations. So we could actually make an ordinance recommendation for Minot, Hebron, Buckfield, and Turner, and just see if that might fly in any one of their planning boards. That's another discussion item down the road. But anyway, yeah, so it went good. So October 28th, 6 p.m., City Hall. And we have an agenda that we'll post very soon. It'll be just like the other one. We'll just continue
Excellent.
the work.
So I think we know where we're at with bonding. Everybody good with that? And the RFP for legal services, I think we know where we're at with that. So I think that we can move right to trustee open session. Our counsel is here. How are you, Jim?
Very
Good to
well.
see ya.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. So we're going to do trustee open session. Does anybody have anything?
Talked about everything I was interested in.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and close that trustee open session, and then we're going to move to executive session. Let's have a motion. Motion to move to executive session.
I move that we move into executive session.
Second is
In
motion.
accordance with 1 MSRA section 405 6E.
Okay, second is,
Second motion.
all in favor? All right, we are in executive session. Are we good?
Camera's on.
All right, we are back from executive session, we're moved back into regular session. I want to just acknowledge for the last executive session that Sid Hazelton and Dan Bilodeau recused themselves to the discussion, and we are officially back in business.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jim.
Take care.
Do we have a second to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Hey, good job tonight, guys, folks. And ladies.
Folks is always a safe word.
Folks is a safe word.
Hey, folks.